We all want to be loved, but never want to get hurt. We all want to belong, but the moment someone says something sharp, we pull away. And here lies the great struggle of being human. We need each other deeply, yet we wound each other constantly. Think about it. How many relationships have you walked away from, not because the love was gone, but because the pain felt too much? How many times have you told yourself, "I'm better off alone," only to feel the cold emptiness of that choice creeping in at night? The truth is, every person you meet carries invisible thorns: anger, pride, ego, insecurity. And so do you. The question is not whether we will hurt each other. Surely we will. The real question is, can we learn to stay close without hurting each other? This story comes from a small Indian village where people lived side by side, but rarely in peace. It's a story within a story, about a wandering sadhu, a tired village head, and a group of porcupines who discovered something that most humans spend a lifetime trying to learn. And at the heart of it all is a lesson so simple yet so powerful that once you hear it, you will never forget it. Because this story doesn't just talk about the problem, it gives you the answer too. So stay with me until the very end, because what a group of prickly creatures learned on the coldest night of winter might just change the way you see every relationship in your life. There was a small village in India, not far from the hills, not close to any city, where people lived side by side, but rarely in peace. Every morning began with someone shouting. Every evening ended with someone sulking. Neighbors fought over whose goat crossed whose fence. Women argued at the water pump over who came first. Elders mocked the young for being careless, and the young laughed at the elders for being outdated. Even children learned to tease instead of help, and even families hurt one another with harsh words. Fight between husband and wife, brothers and sisters, mother and sons were become common in families. Laughter was there, but it was the kind that came from making fun of someone, not from joy. No one remembered when the fighting had started. It had simply always been this way, or at least it felt that way. The words people used were sharper than thorns. A small disagreement would swell into a week-long feud. Families living wall to wall would go months without speaking. And in the middle of all this bitterness stood the sarpanch, the village head, a tired old man who wanted nothing more than to see his people live with some dignity and warmth. He had tried everything. He had called meetings. He had scolded. He had begged. Nothing changed. The village, he often said to himself, was burning, not with fire, but with anger and pride. Then one afternoon, a wandering sadhu appeared at the edge of the village. He walked barefoot, carried nothing but a wooden staff, and had the kind of stillness in his eyes that made even restless people pause. The sarpanch, sensing something different about this man, approached him with folded hands. "Baba," he said, his voice heavy with helplessness, "our village is sick, not with fever, but with hatred. People here scold, mock, and hurt each other all day. I want peace, but I don't know how to bring it." The sadhu listened quietly, then nodded. "Call everyone," he said. "Let the whole village gather under this peepal tree before sunset." The Sarpanch sent messages to every house. By sunset, the entire village had gathered under the peepal tree. Men, women, elders, children. Some came out of respect for the Sadhu, some out of curiosity, and some just to see what new drama would unfold. The Sadhu sat on a small wooden charpai, his eyes kind and peaceful. He looked at the noisy crowd and raised his hand. Slowly, the noise died down. Slowly, the murmurs faded and silence covered the gathering. He began, not with a lecture, not with a preaching, but with a story. "My dear children," the Sadhu began, "let me tell you the story of a winter much colder than the coldest night you have ever felt. One winter in the deep forest, the cold arrived earlier than anyone expected. Snow piled up against tree trunks, streams froze into glass, and a cutting wind moved through the valley like a silent hunter. High on a rocky hill, a small group of porcupines shivered alone in their separate burrows, each trying to be brave, but from inside, each secretly afraid they would not make it through the night. As the temperature dropped, one young porcupine stepped out of her burrow and looked at the white world around her. She could feel the cold reaching through her thick fur and into her bones. She knew that if she stayed alone, she might not see the sunrise. With her tiny paws trembling, she whispered to herself, "I don't want to die alone and frozen. I have to try something different." Down the slope, the young porcupine saw faint shapes moving in the snow. Other porcupines, just as frightened as she was. Cautiously, she walked toward them and said, "If we stay together, we can share our warmth." The others hesitated. "But our quills hurt each other," one answered. "Every time we get close, we get wounded." Still shivering, the young porcupine took a deep breath. "Yes, we will feel some pain," she said. "But if we stay apart, the cold will destroy us anyway. At least together, we have a chance to live." One by one, the porcupines stepped closer and huddled together. At first, it was terrible. Every time they came too close, their quills pierced each other's skin. They cried out in pain and quickly moved apart. But as they moved away, the icy wind cut into them again. They were stuck between two pains, the pain of being hurt by each other and the pain of freezing alone. After a while, they decided to try again, but this time more carefully. They came close, but not too close. They adjusted a little to the left, a little to the right. They learned where to lean and where not to press. Yes, sometimes a quill still hurt, but the pain was smaller than before. Slowly, they found a way to stay near each other, close enough to share warmth, far enough to avoid deep wounds. All night they stayed in this circle of careful closeness. By morning, they were tired, a bit scratched, but they were alive. They had survived the coldest night, not by staying apart and not by crushing each other, but by finding the right distance, where warmth could be shared and wounds could be minimized. From then on, whenever winter came, the porcupines no longer hid alone. They remembered the night they chose courage over comfort, patience over pride, and togetherness over isolation. They learned the lesson: we all have quills, But if we are patient and wise, we can still live close without hurting each other. A silence followed, not the silence of boredom, but the silence of something being understood. The sadhu paused and looked at the villagers. "Tell me," he asked softly, "are you not like these porcupines?" A woman who often fought with her neighbor lowered her eyes. Two brothers who had not spoken for months looked away from each other. "We all have quills," the sadhu continued. "In humans, the quills are not on the body. They are in our words, our anger, our ego, our pride. Sometimes we say harsh things, we mock, we tease, we insult. These are our quills, and they hurt others deeply. Some people, after getting hurt, decide, I will stay alone. I don't need anyone. They think distance will protect them from pain. Yes, it may protect them from being hurt, but it also takes away warmth, love, support, and the joy of being together. Others come so close without respect, without understanding, that their quills keep stabbing each other again and again. They live together, but every day is a new fight, a new wound. The wise way is not to run away from people and not to attack them all the time. The wise way is to live like the porcupines learned to live, close enough to share warmth, but with enough understanding to reduce the hurt. Then the sadhu's voice became a little firmer, though still gentle. My children, remember this. You do not fight here because of hunger or danger. You fight because of ego, because each one wants to prove, I am right, you are wrong. I am bigger, you are smaller. In such battles, even the one who wins truly loses. As the Buddha has taught, in the war of ego, the winner always loses. When you win an argument but wound a heart, what have you really gained? No one answered, but many heads dropped, not in shame, but in quiet recognition. The sadhu continued, This means learn to speak softly, even when you are angry. Learn to listen before you shout. Learn to say, I am sorry, when your quills hurt someone. Learn to forgive when others' quills hurt you. If a forest full of sharp, prickly porcupines can find a way to survive together in the cold, then surely a village full of humans with hearts, minds, and the gift of understanding can find a way to live in peace. The sadhu's words fell on the villagers like gentle rain on dry land. The man who fought at the well remembered the times he had shouted over small things. A group of boys who mocked others for fun felt a sting in their hearts. The Sarpanch was the first to stand. With folded hands and moist eyes, he spoke to his people. Baba is right. We have been burning our own house with our own hands. Let us remember these porcupines. Let us try not to be perfect, but to be kinder. We may not become perfect in one day, but we can at least start by checking our quills, our words, our actions before they hurt someone. And we will remember, in the war of ego, the winner always loses. Slowly, people began to change small things. A woman who would normally shout chose to stay calm. A man who would usually incite stayed silent instead. Children who laughed at others started helping them. The old peepal tree watched quietly as something rare began to grow in the village. Not just silence, but understanding. Not just less fighting, but more kindness. The villagers still had their quills. No one became perfect, but they learned to live like the porcupines, not without pain, but with more warmth than hurt. Whenever tempers fled, someone would say, "Remember the porcupines, and remember the war of ego." And it worked, not like magic, but like medicine. Slowly, gently, one small adjustment at a time. The village never became perfect. It never needed to. Because the lesson was never about removing your quills. It was about learning to live with everyone else's. This story carries a truth that touches every single one of us. Because whether we live in a small village or a big city, in a joint family or alone in an apartment, we are all porcupines. Every person walking this earth carries quills. The quill of anger, the quill of pride, the quill of ego, the quill of harsh words spoken in a moment of frustration. And every one of us faces the same choice the porcupines faced on that freezing night. Do I stay alone and safe, but cold? Or do I move closer and risk getting hurt, but also receive warmth? The lesson here is not that relationships should be painless. They never will be. The lesson is that the pain of isolation, the emptiness of cutting people off, the loneliness of building walls around your heart is far worse than the occasional scratch that comes from living close to others. But here is where wisdom comes in. Closeness without awareness is just as destructive as distance. Coming together recklessly, without patience, without self-control, without sensitivity, turns love into a battlefield. The porcupines didn't just huddle blindly. They adjusted. A little to the left, a little to the right. They learned where to lean and where not to press. That is the secret. In our lives, this means learning to pause before we speak in anger. It means choosing silence over sarcasm. It means saying "I'm sorry" even when our pride screams against it. It means forgiving, not because the other person deserves it, but because carrying bitterness is like dragging a bag of stones through your life. And perhaps the most powerful teaching from the story is this: you do not need to become a perfect person to live peacefully with others. The porcupines never lost their quills. The villagers never became saints. But they learned to adjust. And that small shift made all the difference. So remember, not the absence of differences. It is the ability to handle those differences with grace. Adjustment is not weakness. It is maturity. In the war of ego, the winner always loses. The next time someone's words prick you or your own anger rises like a wave, pause for a moment and whisper to yourself, "Remember the porcupines." That one phrase can change the entire direction of a conversation, a relationship, and even a life. Now I want to hear from you. Tell me in the comments whose quills have hurt you the most in life, and more importantly, whose quills have you unknowingly pricked? Sometimes the most powerful change begins when we look at our own thorns before pointing at someone else's. If you believe this story deserves to reach more hearts, please like and share this video so it can find the people who need it most. And if you haven't already, subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon so you never miss a story that could change your perspective. I'll be back again soon with another story that will make you think, feel, and grow. Until then, be patient, be kind, check your quills before they hurt someone, and always remember, the warmth of togetherness is always greater than the pain of small wounds. In the war of ego, the winner always loses. So choose closeness with care, because no one survives the cold alone.